I'm Mark Robertson on my site, Carrying Lawn Chairs. It's named after my book, Carrying Lawn Chairs, Youth Sports, and Other Parental Mindsets. As I mention each time, the book's divided into two parts. The first part deals with all the problems I have with organized youth sports. I'm against organized youth sports for children 12 and under. It's not about play, it's not about fun, it's about the parents. And it seems so right that normal kids on a baseball field, all in uniforms, it's just like the major leagues. That's the problem. They're not little adults. They are children. They aren't having fun. They do it because the parents want them to, and they want the love of their parents. And the parents are all there with their mind and, showing off their SUVs, and we're all got it all together, and want my kid's a great baseball player and all this, and they don't care about the kids having fun for the most part. Now, I'm generalizing, and again, I'm not a parental expert or a guru. I just tell you what I observe and what I think about it. And like I say, it's dysfunctional. Organized youth sports for kids is dysfunctional 12 and under. After that, if they want to play, fine. And there are many stories about kids having good memories of playing in their teens and things like that. But it's not fun for kids, and we've talked about that over and over. And like let's say the last time was one of the most amazing things. I talked to a gentleman I worked with. He's in charge of baseball fields. He had a job where he ran leagues and things like that. During the China virus, they played the games, but they wouldn't let the parents be there. And he says he couldn't believe the difference in the games. The kids, even though it was still organized, were having fun because the parents weren't in the stands screaming and on the edge of their seat of every move. It still wasn't perfect. I don't like organized sports. It's better off for them to go play pickup games. They learn how to play better. They learn to compete better. They have fun. They're having their childhood. All these parents getting their kids started at so many things at a young age steals their childhood. Let them have their childhood for as long as they can. They're not lazy. They're not wasting time. They're playing. That's how they develop. My gosh, is it really that tough? But these parents have low self-worth, and they think, oh my God, my kid's never going to get ahead if I don't get him started real early and all these things. And he might have a chance to make it because he's just an awful person. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. And one other thing, the second part of the book deals with all sorts of other problems related to young people and all the obstacles they face these days with all the stuff pushed at them, perversion, drugs, promiscuity, everything else. And it's just evil what they face in government schools and elsewhere in society. And they push God out of it, so they really don't have anything to hang on. And then a lot of their homes are dysfunctional, either single parent, and there are many good single parent homes. But it's the whole family situation in the country is dysfunctional, and the government's trying to break down the family. That's what all Marxists do. The Democrats, they don't care. They don't like the family. That's what the welfare state was about. It's about breaking up the family. And so it's we're up against evil here. But today, we talk about parents and why they put their kids in organized youth sports and other activities at a very young age. Well, so many parents have low self-worth themselves, and they look at their child as inferior just for being here. And they just have to tell them every day. They go with the Vince Lombardi approach. You got to tear them down to build them up. And yes, Vince Lombardi was a very successful coach, but there was more to it there than that. And that's a professional career anyway. And this is not childhood. But many parents think, well, if I just tear them down, I don't want them to get a big head about themselves because this is a cruel world and they're going to have to really learn how to deal with the world. So I better cut them down and tell them they're not any good and that they're never going to amount to anything and that they're lazy and if they don't get it together, they're just going to just never amount to anything and live on Skid Row. And it's actually just the opposite of what should be done. And these kids, and the parents are relentless in that as well. And the child is just a child. Every child born is just an open book of absorbing life. And if they get the constant negativity from parents that they're never going to amount to anything, that's self-fulfilling prophecy a lot of times. And but the parents think if they ever compliment them, they think, oh, well, they'll get lazy and they won't be trying hard and all this nonsense. I'm not saying that in school and in learning that it doesn't need to be some rigor. We've talked about education. People learn differently. That's a story for another time. But the idea of tearing down to build up is evil. And it probably goes generations back. Well, you got to work. Life is miserable, and you got to work, and that's the only way. Yeah, we all have to work. I mean, 20% of the country doesn't work because of the welfare state, and I think that's undermining the country as well. But every child is gifted. Every child is a magnificent masterpiece of God, a miracle. And parents should start treating them that way. And I'm not saying that you just got to praise everything and, oh, this is my little boy Jimmy and he's so wonderful. I'm not saying that, but bring out the best in your child. Bring out who they are. Don't condemn them just for breathing, but parents do that. I mean, the child is basically just being themselves, but the parents that I'm talking about just naturally think that they're inferior, that they're always, they think, oh, there's something wrong with him. He doesn't have straight A's, or he's not a great athlete, or something. He doesn't match up to society. But no, every child has something to offer. And every child, God didn't leave anybody out. Every child has a gift that they can hone and improve and go in that direction. No, that's why I remember even in first grade, after a few days, they divided us up in the fast group and the slow group. I was in the slow group. Well, in the first grade, I mean, my God. And it was a decent school. It was a Catholic school, and they had good teachers there in the first grade. But it's crazy to do it that way. And that's why I think education has to be more personalized, because every child learns differently. This is why homeschooling has been so successful. And, well, they can't socialize. The homeschooling kids are the most well-adjusted kids I've ever seen, versus the government school kids. They come out wearing their black suits and the rings in their noses and purple hair and all this. And and then when the parents aren't cutting them down directly, saying you're never going to amount to anything and all you do is sit around all day and think about yourself. Because some kids are more introverted. They're not trying to do anything wrong. It's just who they are. So encourage them for who they are. And yes, everybody needs to be responsible and learn how to be responsible in life. And parents teach that as well. But you don't have to teach it in a condemning way that they're naturally bad or lazy. Just for example, doing the dishes. Maybe teach them how to do the dishes and enjoy it and learn from it and just be happy at that in the present moment. You're lazy. You don't do all this stuff. You gotta get it together, and you're never going to amount to anything if you don't do things the way I'm telling you to do them. And I really think that's a reason so many kids are depressed or suicidal or on drugs, because parents don't bring out who they are. And then they go to schools, these government schools, and it's all about peer pressure, and they want to fit in. And the harder they try to fit in, the worse it gets. And then they do crazy things to get love. That's the same way with gangs in the neighborhoods. Why are there gangs? Because they have no family life. And they reach out and they want to be loved by somebody, so they're loved by gangs, and they'll do anything. They'll kill people for love. And it's who we are. So parents, that's what it's about. It's about loving your kids and praising them. That doesn't mean you don't maybe push them sometimes to do things in a different way or better, but keep encouraging them. Don't ever cut them down in the hopes of trying to build them up. And that just comes from parental inferiority. They don't think they're capable of themselves, so they can never have a capable child. So they look at the child 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, 8, 9, 10, that they're inferior. So they got to do something, or they got to call the doctor. There's something wrong with my kid. He needs drugs and all this other nonsense. No, every child is a genius. Now, what about retarded children? And I said the word retarded, oh my gosh. But they're wonderful as well. And they all have capabilities and beauty in them. And that parents should look at the child that way, that there's beauty in them. And encourage them. Now, I know parenting is exasperating. You've got to make a living, you got to keep the house clean, you got to do all this stuff. And sometimes you're just too exhausted to be the happy mother and saying, oh, I love my child and all this. But try to do it. Try. Give an effort to encourage your child to realize every child has gifts from God that need to be nurtured. And you can do this along with telling them, well, we got to keep our rooms clean, and we got to take out the trash, we got to do the dishes. I know there's dishwashers now, but things around the house. There's nothing wrong with that, but encourage them. That they all have something to offer this world. It seems today that everybody wants to be robots. We go to school, we got to get all these grades, you got to do all this stuff, and that's fine. if you want to, well, they're never going to do it unless they get a good job, unless they go to school and go to college and do all this. I think college gets in the way of success a lot of times. Yes, you can go and you can be an accountant, which is fine. We need accountants, or a doctor or an engineer. But other than that, there's so much out there that you could do without a college degree. I mean, Charlie Kirk, the late great Charlie Kirk, wrote a book called The College Scam. Well, you come out of college $200,000 in debt. That's insanity. That's a form of control, and it's crazy. You'd be better off getting a job at fast food than being $200,000 in debt and starting something on your own. But I just want to get the point out that don't look at your child as being inferior just because they're alive and breathing. Because if you do, that means you think you're inferior. Look at them as the miracle they are. They're a living, breathing miracle who wants love. And give them that. Encourage them. Tell them they're a magnificent miracle of God. And they'll think better about themselves. And when they think better about themselves, they'll do better. They'll gravitate toward what they do well. But this government schools discourages so many kids. And it's just, the government schooling is a disaster. And there's private schooling that is as well. They try to make every kid a robot. And yes, now, again, I'm not a psychological expert, but there have been people who've written books that say, well, about 90% of society is the norm. They're normal. And then there's about 10% are neurodiverse. They don't do things like everyone else. Well, that's part of it too. You might have a child who's, I guess they call them neurodiverse, and they do things differently. And but the parents think that's a problem too. Or they're introverted. It's amazing how parents can get mad at a child for being introverted. They think, well, they're not paying attention to them. And it's just unbelievable. But some parents it's going to be so messed up. And but then you have the 90% that supposedly aren't neurodiverse. They're normal or normal, and but even they are individuals, and they need encouragement, and they have a gift from God. It might be doing something more normal, accounting, carpentry, something very specific, and they have gifts as well that need to be encouraged. And so the neurodiversity versus the normal, that's a whole different discussion. But every child is individual and unique and a gift from God. And parents should look at the child that way and then encourage them to bring out their best and who they are. And, belief in God too. God has a plan for your child, and God will take care of them. Now, yes, there are boundaries. Your kids can't hang out with bad people. And it's hard to do in these schooling days, even in private schooling. And these government schools are just a disaster for young people. And I want to phase government schooling out, but that's obviously not going to happen in the near future, because when the federal government gets involved, it always is a disaster. There should be no Department of Education. Before John Dewey and Horace Mann came along, who wanted to make the school system like the Soviet school system, which they greatly admired, the Russian or the Prussian school system, they wanted to make them indoctrination centers. So that's another problem as well. These kids get indoctrinated and they get feeling bad about themselves from school as well. So that's why I'm opposed government schooling. I'm all for homeschooling, and yes, children need educated, and they need to put forth effort. And like I say, there are kids that learn differently as well. But what I'm saying today, the main point I want to put forth is that children are all miracles. They're miracles. And you got to love them and hug them and encourage them and show them that they have talents. Try to recognize their talents. Let them go towards their talents and try to maybe even look for them and point them out without trying to control them. They have talents that they want to naturally use. God gave us talents in things that He wants us to use and that we want to use. And so go for that direction. It's not, we got to get out of this survival mode. A lot of people are in there, I got to work. And yes, we do have to work. But work at something that we're gifted for. Everybody's gifted at something. I mean, I had a brother, and he could take a motor apart and put it back together, but he was I guess you would call it neurodiverse, and he thought he was something wrong with him, and he's no longer with us. He had problems with alcohol and things like that, but it came from not feeling good about himself because he was different. He just did things differently, and that gets punished in the world today, and a lot of times. And so we gotta learn that these children are all gifts from God, and we gotta bring out their best. We can't look at them as their yes, it's very sometimes tiring to raise children, but we can't look at them as a problem, as a hassle, because they get it. If you imply things to kids, that's another thing. The parent won't always be directly telling the child that you're never going to amount to anything if you don't change. They'll imply things. They'll give them looks. They'll never encourage them, and they'll never say they love them, and things like that. And they'll also do the silent treatment. I've actually seen parents in sporting events not go to the games because they want the child to think that they're playing in more inferior, and the parents don't want to be embarrassed by them or something. They use all sorts of tactics that they think they're doing good for the child, but they're not. And it's awful. And again, that's another reason I'm against organized sports for kids 12 and under. All those games are played as well. So say you have a game, child has a game, they have a bad game, and they get in the ride in the car home and it's silent. The parents aren't going to be happy, they're going to be upset, but it'll be silent. They'll get the silent treatment. And that's, again, I've mentioned Yogi Berra in most of my carrying lawn chairs shows, because he says that he would rather have a guy who played pickup games on his team in the major leagues than a guy who played Little League. Because in Little League, you bat 3 or 4 times, you got the parents in the stands screaming, and you're afraid to do anything. In Little League, or in sandlot ball, you're out there playing, you might bat 40 times a day, and you're having fun, and you're laughing, and you're in the fresh air, and you're just having a blast. That's where Yogi Berra, the man with 10 World Series rings, no one else has that many, he learned to play baseball in the sandlots of the Hill in St. Louis. And did he have, he didn't play Little League, and he's against Little League. So it's not just me. If you want your child to be good in sports, let them play pickup games. That's where they learn. But even then, don't do it for that reason. Do it because they want to go out and have fun playing some baseball. And adults can play with them. I mean, the dad can go out there and pitch or do something, or the elder or the adult person. They'd be having fun too. But this is dysfunctional, this organized youth sports. And this is more about what I'm talking about. These parents, they're looking at their kids as being inferior. So we got to get them started early. And we got to get them to learn how to do proper footwork in soccer. Or we got to get them to swing level. That's what T-ball is all about. Because they want to teach them to swing level for the next level and the next level. They never enjoy the present moment. It's always about the future. And they're taking away the childhood of these children. And let them play. It's not a waste of time. It's not only not a waste of time, it is so necessary. And it's part of childhood. But so many parents, in the idea that they're doing good, try to squash the childhood, thinking that it's a waste of time, they got to get with this world or they're never going to be a success. Let them play. That's how they find out who they are. And when they know who they are, they're better adjusted for the world. They know what direction they want to go. That's in play. Again, that doesn't mean there can't be boundaries. They don't want to run wild in the neighborhoods. But let them play within those boundaries. And that's how they find out who they are and how they best adjust to the world. Again, people have to learn. We have to learn proper English. You have to do math, basic math. It's good to learn history, although the history taught in government schools is not history. It's indoctrination and the other things to get along in society. But you've got to let them play. It's not they're showing that they're lazy or they're wasting their time. It's who they are. Every child is born knowing how to play. I told the story a couple shows ago about my nephew's son who was 1.5 years, and we were at this party, and he walks now, and it was for his older brother's graduation, and his older brother was holding him. But on one side, it was kind of in a gym, half party area, And there were a bunch of kids over in the gym area kicking balls and having fun like that. He never took his eyes off them. So then his older brother let him down. He charged right for that area with the balls, and he found a balloon, and he played with the balloon, and he kicked the balloon, and he hit the balloon, and he run after the balloon. He's a year and a half. Did he go to balloon school to learn how to do that? No. It's natural who they are. They play. They learn about life doing that. He learned about life playing with that balloon. Kids learn about life in play. They all know how to play. They're never bored. They only learn how to be bored when they get to be in their teens and stuff, and they get on their phones all day. And so we got to let them play. Let them go outside and play, please. Don't tell your kids they're never going to amount to anything. Don't tell them that they're lazy. Don't tell them that you're going to be on Skid Row if you don't change your ways. And does that mean some kids don't get, mostly because parents do this, but they get off out of sync or in bad company? Or yes, they do. But I even think that could be avoided if kids were allowed to play when they were growing up. And you don't want to get, because that also shows a lack of love. They're looking for love with bad people. And then they get in trouble and they get off kilter, off course. And there are reasons kids get off course. No kid is born bad. And like I say, it's tough to make a living, a challenge. And you got to raise your kids and do all this. It's overwhelming at times. But please, don't berate your kids just for being who they are. They're all magnificent miracles of God. God has them on this earth for a reason. They are needed. The parents are needed. They're all miracles. And again, let them be who they are. Encourage them to be who they are. The gifts, and to use the gifts that God has given them. No child is inferior. No child. So we thank you for joining us on Carrying Lawn Chairs, and we'll see you next time.